When people talk about Operation Desert Storm, they usually mention smart bombs, stealth aircraft, and armored divisions racing across Kuwait. But, what rarely gets discussed are the machines that weren't supposed to be there at all. Some of these machines were classified, some even violated international agreements, and others were quietly shelved afterward because, honestly, they worked a little too well. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They didn't fire missiles or drop bombs. Instead, they kept soldiers alive in an environment that was actively trying to kill them. Extreme heat, chemical threats, sand that destroyed engines, and a battlefield where detection meant death. For a brief window in the early 1990s, the US military deployed machines that solved these problems so effectively that, well, they later became politically inconvenient. Today you can't see them in museums, you won't hear veterans encouraged to discuss them, and most manuals remain buried, but during Desert Storm, these machines quietly saved lives every single day. One of the least-known life-saving machines in Desert Storm was, honestly, a fleet of mobile chemical reconnaissance vehicles designed to detect nerve agents in real time. Officially, the United States relied on individual chemical alarms and stationary sensors. Unofficially, there were these highly modified armored vehicles equipped with continuous air sampling systems, and they were deployed forward with frontline units. These machines could detect trace amounts of sarin, mustard gas, and VX before troops ever knew they were exposed. The issue was that some of these detection systems were actually derived from technology restricted under post-Cold War chemical monitoring agreements. The machines didn't violate bans by existing, but by how aggressively they sampled air in enemy territory without disclosure. After the war, they were quietly pulled from service. Desert Sand destroyed equipment at a shocking rate. Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, and transport trucks suffered catastrophic engine failures because filtration systems were never designed for fine desert dust. To solve this, experimental sand-proof turbine filtration units were rushed into service. These machines used layered cyclonic separators and electrostatic filtration systems that kept engines running far beyond their expected limits. They worked exceptionally well, too well in fact. The systems dramatically extended engine life, but they were expensive, heavy, and required specialized maintenance. After the war, budget pressures and peacetime logistics killed the program. One of the most quietly revolutionary machines in Desert Storm was, honestly, a mobile reverse osmosis water purification unit mounted on standard military trucks. Official doctrine emphasized centralized water supply, but, desert warfare made that impossible. These machines could pull contaminated or brackish water from almost any source and, produce drinkable water within just a few hours. The problem wasn't performance, it was optics. The existence of self-sufficient water units actually undermined decades of logistical planning and exposed how vulnerable traditional supply chains really were. After the war, many of these systems were mothballed rather than expanded. Desert Storm wasn't just fought with bullets, it was fought with sensors. Iraqi forces relied heavily on Soviet-era infrared detection systems. To counter this, the US deployed experimental thermal masking machines that altered the heat signature of vehicles and temporary encampments. These systems redistributed engine heat, cooled exhaust plumes, and reduced thermal contrast against the desert floor. They weren't perfect, but they worked well enough to prevent detection during critical movements. Post-war, these systems raised uncomfortable questions about escalation and battlefield transparency. If invisibility becomes standard, deterrence theory starts to collapse. The machines were shelved. Another overlooked category involves battlefield medical machines that stabilized wounded soldiers before evacuation. Portable negative pressure trauma systems and advanced field ventilators were deployed experimentally, saving lives that would have been lost in previous wars. Some of these machines blurred the line between field care and hospital treatment, raising ethical and logistical concerns. After the war, doctrine reverted to simpler systems. Yet modern emergency medicine quietly adopted many of these ideas years later. For preparedness professionals, the application is obvious. Immediate stabilization buys time. The uncomfortable truth is that effectiveness alone doesn't guarantee survival in military planning. Political optics, treaty interpretations, cost and institutional inertia often decide what stays and what vanishes. Desert Storm exposed solutions that solve problems too well, forcing uncomfortable re-evaluations of doctrine. Rather than adapt fully, many of these machines were quietly retired. Studying these banned and forgotten machines isn't nostalgia, it's a case study in how innovation emerges under pressure and disappears when that pressure fades. For historians, it challenges sanitized narratives of clean wars and perfect planning. For survivalists, it reinforces timeless principles. Early detection beats reaction, decentralization beats dependence, overbuilt systems outperform minimalist ones when environments turn hostile. If you want more deep dives into the strange, suppressed, and misunderstood corners of military history, make sure you subscribe to Strange History, share this with fellow researchers, and keep these stories alive. Some of the most important machines in history were never meant to be remembered.